The golden afternoon sunlight streamed through the transparent glass windows of the top-floor office in Al Nahyan Tower, casting brilliant rays on the marble-covered walls. Sultan Al Nahyan, a powerful and famously cold-hearted millionaire, sat behind a massive mahogany desk, his sharp eyes fixed on the young woman sitting opposite him. Hana Farouk, dressed in a simple light blue dress, clasped her hands tightly on her lap. Despite her attempts to appear calm, the deep worry in her brown eyes was unmistakable. "Ms. Farouk, I believe we both understand why you're here," Sultan said, his deep voice firm, succinct, and brimming with authority. Hana raised her head, her lips pressed into a thin line. She had once thought of Dubai, with all its grandeur, as a place that existed only in her dreams. Yet now, seated in this opulent office, she felt as though she was standing at an unexpected crossroad in her life. "You want me to sign a contract," she said, her voice trembling slightly but laced with determination. "But why me? You could choose anyone else." Sultan leaned forward, his dark gaze hardening with conviction. "You are the ideal choice. First, you have the education and dignity necessary for this role. Second, your motivation stems from your family's survival, not greed. I don't need someone who's only after money. I need a reliable partner." Hana felt her chest tighten. Sultan's words were sharp and brutally realistic, cutting through her resolve like a blade. Yet he wasn't wrong. Her mother lay bedridden, fighting daily against the final stages of heart disease. The cost of surgery far exceeded her family's means, and the doctors had been clear. Without timely surgery, her mother only had a few months to live. "Ms. Farouk, I'm not asking you to love me," Sultan continued, his steady tone revealing meticulous planning in every word. "I need a legitimate marriage for 5 years. You will bear me a child to secure the future of the Al Nahyan family. In return, I will cover all medical expenses for your mother and ensure financial stability for your family throughout the duration of the contract." Hana stared at the man before her. He had everything: power, wealth, and an unnervingly magnetic presence. Yet none of it comforted her. Beneath the perfect suit was a stranger, with a heart seemingly made of ice, a man who appeared indifferent to emotions, concerned only with results. "Why 5 years?" she asked, trying to buy herself some time to think. "5 years is enough to stabilize everything," Sultan replied without hesitation. "After that, we can dissolve the marriage amicably. You'll receive a substantial sum to start over." Hana remained silent, her mind spinning. Her pride was being tested, yet the image of her mother lying in a hospital bed left her no choice. "All right," Hana said after a long pause, "but I have one condition. You will not control my personal life. My emotions and my freedom are non-negotiable." Sultan narrowed his eyes at her, as if evaluating her resolve. After a moment he nodded, a cold smile appearing on his face. "You have courage. I respect that. The agreement is accepted." As Hana placed the pen to paper, signing the contract, she felt as though she was stepping into an unfamiliar world, one dictated by terms and conditions. She silently promised herself to keep her heart guarded in this arrangement, but deep down, a lingering fear crept into her mind, whispering that fate might not make it so easy. Welcome to today's story. Let us know which city you're watching from. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel to never miss out on meaningful stories like this one. Chapter 1. Life in the Palace. The wedding day arrived, a radiant morning in Dubai, with sunlight streaming through the gilded domes of the Al Nahyan Palace. Hana stood before a mirror, dressed in a traditional ivory Arab wedding gown intricately embroidered with gold thread. A long veil was fastened with a sparkling diamond brooch. Everything appeared perfect, yet her heart felt heavy. The wedding was held in the palace gardens, where thousands of white roses were arranged to create a breathtaking maze. Influential figures from the worlds of business and politics gathered, forming a perfect tableau of power and opulence. As Hana walked down the aisle with her father, she felt the gaze of hundreds of guests fixed on her. Some nodded in approval at her beauty, but many other looks carried judgment, especially that of Aisha, Sultan's mother. "The daughter of a poor teacher?" Aisha whispered to a companion, her eyes never leaving Hana. "What does she want but money?" Hana overheard the murmurs but forced herself to keep her steps steady. She refused to appear weak before these strangers who felt so distant and cold. Standing beside Sultan, the man she had agreed to marry for reasons far removed from romance, she noticed he didn't even smile. When he extended his hand, it was rigid, as though this was nothing more than a business transaction. The vows were exchanged, the ring slipped on, yet everything unfolded like a meticulously staged performance. When Sultan leaned in to kiss her, his lips barely brushed her cheek, devoid of any emotion. The chill in every action was palpable. The reception that followed was a grand affair, filled with speeches, laughter, and the resonating sound of traditional music. Yet amidst all the grandeur, Hana felt lonelier than ever. Sultan spent most of the evening engrossed in conversations with business associates, leaving her to endure insincere congratulations alone. After the wedding, Hana moved into the Al Nahyan Palace, an architectural marvel with Persian carpets stretching down endless hallways and grand salons adorned with golden pearls. Despite its beauty, the palace felt cold and unwelcoming to her. Sultan was rarely home. He spent most of his time at the office or in endless meetings. When he was at the palace, he kept his distance, speaking to Hana in brief, polite sentences, devoid of warmth or connection. "This isn't a home," Hana thought one evening, as she sat alone in the vast dining room, staring at the long table draped in white silk. Sultan had informed her earlier that he'd be late, as usual. The servants moved quietly, serving dinner, but none spoke to her. She felt like an unwelcome guest in a house that was supposed to be hers. Another night, as she wandered the palace gardens, she spotted Sultan standing by the water fountain, gazing into the distance. He stood still, holding a glass of wine, his expression weighed down by something invisible yet immense. Hana wanted to approach him but stopped herself. "He doesn't need me," she thought. "This is just a contract." One afternoon, while walking through the palace's vast library, Hana stumbled upon an old photograph tucked between books on a desk. It depicted a young man with a radiant smile, standing beside a younger sultan. She instantly recognized Sultan's face, but the other man wasn't him. The family's elderly butler, Abbas, entered the room and noticed Hana holding the photo. He paused, his expression softening with sorrow. "That is Khalid, Sultan's elder brother," Abbas said quietly. Hana turned to Abbas, her curiosity piqued. "Khalid?" Abbas nodded, his face shadowed by sadness. Master Khalid was the first heir of the Al Nahyan family, but he passed away in a car accident 10 years ago. "An accident?" Hana asked, sensing the pain in Abbas's voice. "Yes," Abbas replied. "Master Khalid was a kind soul, always trusting of others, but the accident changed everything. From that moment on, Master Sultan took on the family's responsibilities, stepping into his brother's role. He became withdrawn and burdened with pressures no one else could truly understand." Hana stared at the photograph in her hand. Khalid's smile shone like a beacon from a forgotten past. She began to understand that behind Sultan's cold exterior was a man who had endured immense pain and loss. That evening, when Sultan returned home, Hana saw him differently. She no longer viewed him as merely a cold-hearted millionaire, but as a lonely man struggling to hide his grief. Yet she couldn't help but wonder if she could ever help him open up, or if this would always remain an emotionless arrangement. Chapter 2. Moments of Change. One quiet afternoon, Hana decided to explore the grand library within the palace, a treasure trove of ancient books and priceless artifacts. In a corner of the room, she discovered a wooden box with the name Khalid engraved in Arabic. Curiosity urged her to open it, and inside she found a collection of handwritten letters and a small journal. Carefully opening each letter, she realized they belonged to Khalid, Sultan's older brother. The letters revealed that Khalid had uncovered a massive corruption scheme orchestrated by a rival corporation involving forged contracts and falsified documents aimed at discrediting the Al Nahyan family. Khalid had been gathering evidence to expose the truth, but tragically died in a mysterious car accident on his way to an important meeting just weeks later. Hana felt the pain and regret woven into the words Khalid had left behind. That evening, she resolved to confront Sultan. "Have you ever read these letters?" Hana asked, placing the box on the desk in Sultan's study. Sultan glanced at the box, and his expression immediately darkened. His eyes grew cold as he looked at the letters. Slowly, he placed a hand on the box but didn't open it. They don't mean anything anymore, Sultan said, his voice rough. But Khalid was trying to protect your family. Don't you think you should finish what he started? Hana looked directly at Sultan, her voice filled with determination. Sultan remained silent for a long time. Finally he sighed, his gaze clouded as if reliving painful memories. He trusted people, and it killed him. I couldn't protect Khalid. I will never forgive myself for that. Hana stepped closer, gently placing her hand on Sultan's shoulder. You can't change the past, but you can do something to honor him. Khalid wouldn't want you to spend your life trapped in guilt like this. Hana's words pierced through Sultan's stoic exterior. He looked at her, and for the first time, there was a vulnerability in his eyes that he had never shown before. A few weeks later, Hana's mother underwent a critical surgery. Hana spent all her time at the hospital, her anxiety growing with each passing hour. Sultan didn't say much, but that night, as Hana fell asleep on a chair by her mother's bedside, he appeared. Sultan quietly took a seat near the door, watching over Hana and her mother. He motioned for the nurses to remain silent, not wanting to wake Hana. All night he stayed at the hospital, reading medical reports and occasionally glancing at Hana's mother to ensure everything was fine. When Hana woke up early the next morning, she was surprised to see Sultan still there. His eyes were bloodshot from lack of sleep, but he maintained his usual composed demeanor. Have you been here all night? Hana asked, unable to hide her astonishment. It was the right thing to do, Sultan replied, looking straight at her. I know how important your mother is to you. I wanted to make sure everything was all right. Hana felt the sincerity in Sultan's voice. For the first time, she didn't see a distant and cold man. She saw someone who cared, even if he didn't show it openly. Her heart stirred, and she couldn't stop herself from smiling at him. After the surgery, Hana's mother began to recover. To Hana's surprise, Sultan frequently visited the hospital, bringing small gifts and sharing humorous stories about life in Dubai. Her mother began to see him not just as a powerful man, but as a kind-hearted individual, albeit with a somewhat awkward way of expressing it. Meanwhile, Sultan started inviting Hana to the family's charitable events. He wanted her by his side, not just to maintain appearances, but because he realized her presence brought him an unexpected sense of peace. At a major fundraising gala, Hana impressed the guests with her sincerity and grace. She engaged in conversations with donors, proposed fresh ideas for charity projects, and even managed to win over Sultan's mother, who had once doubted her. I must admit, my daughter-in-law is far more intelligent and capable than I thought, Aisha whispered to Sultan as they watched Hana conversing with a major donor. Sultan didn't reply, but his gaze never left Hana. Deep inside, a feeling he thought he'd never experience again began to grow. Hana was no longer just a contractual wife. She was someone special, someone who was slowly breaking down the walls he had built over the years. In the evenings, Sultan and Hana started talking more. She asked him about his childhood, the pressures he faced, and the responsibilities he carried. Sultan began to open up, and every story he shared, every memory he revealed, brought them closer. One late night, as they sat on the palace veranda, Sultan looked deeply into Hana's eyes and said, "You remind me that life isn't just about responsibilities. Maybe I've forgotten that for too long." Hana smiled, and for the first time she felt that their relationship was no longer just an agreement. Something genuine was beginning to form, and she knew she was no longer alone in this cold, unfamiliar world. Chapter 3. The Climax, the Truth Unveiled. One afternoon, while organizing the palace's grand library, Hana overheard a tense phone conversation between Sultan and his trusted assistant, Malik. Malik's voice was strained as he said, "We've discovered that the Al Rahim Corporation is preparing to release a fabricated report implying that the Al Nahyan family covered up Khalid's death to protect their assets." Hana froze in place. She didn't dare ask Sultan directly, but the tension in his demeanor over the following days was unmistakable. Sultan spent long hours in his office, meeting with advisors and lawyers. Hana began to realize that this was not just about the family's reputation. This was about the very survival of the Al Nahyan legacy. While tidying up Sultan's study, Hana found a folder filled with handwritten notes. It contained information about suspicious transactions, and evidence showing that Al-Rahim had manipulated data to discredit the Al Nahyan family. These actions not only threatened Sultan's reputation, but also jeopardized the charitable projects he was spearheading. Hana decided to investigate further. She knew Sultan would never let her get involved in something dangerous, but she couldn't stand by idly while his family and he were under attack. At a high-profile fundraising gala, attended by influential figures from major corporations, Hana discreetly observed the representatives from Al-Rahim. Amid the music and wine, she overheard a conversation between two senior executives. "This is the perfect time to release the report," one of them said. "Sultan will never dare to reveal what really happened to Khalid. Everything has been set up." "Exactly. He won't just lose his reputation. He'll lose everything. We'll bring the Al Nahyan family to its knees." Hana quietly pulled out her phone and began recording their conversation, her hands trembling as she tried not to draw attention. But as she turned to leave, one of the men noticed her. "Wait!" the man called out loudly. "What did you just do?" Hana immediately turned and bolted, weaving through the crowd in search of an escape. But before she could reach the door, two men from Al-Rahim blocked her path. "What do you think you're doing?" one of them demanded, his tone menacing. Hana tried to remain calm. "I don't know what you're talking about. Don't play dumb. You're gathering evidence against us. Do you really think you can get away with this?" They dragged her to a secluded corner, their cold eyes filled with threat. Just as the situation seemed dire, a commanding voice rang out, firm and authoritative. "Let her go immediately." Hana turned to see Sultan standing there, his face stern and his eyes burning with fury. The two men faltered, their confidence evaporating as they recognized him. "Sultan," one of them stammered, trying to maintain composure. "This is just a misunderstanding." "A misunderstanding?" Sultan strode forward, positioning himself protectively in front of Hana. "A misunderstanding when you're threatening my wife?" Without waiting for a reply, Sultan called for the palace security team. The two men were swiftly escorted out of the gala, and Sultan wasted no time in taking Hana home. On the way back, the car was steeped in silence, except for the tension emanating from Sultan. "What were you thinking?" Sultan finally asked, his deep voice steady but laced with concern. "Do you have any idea how much danger you put yourself in?" "I couldn't stand by while they tried to destroy you," Hana replied, her voice shaking with emotion. "I wanted to help you, Sultan. I couldn't let them win." Sultan pulled the car to the side of the road and turned to face her. "You have no idea how important you are to me, do you? Hana, I can't lose you, not even for a second." Hana could hear the sincerity in his voice, and her heart melted. This wasn't just a husband by contract anymore. Sultan truly cared for her. The next day, Sultan decided to take action. Armed with Hana's recording and years of evidence he had meticulously gathered, he organized a major press conference to expose the truth. Sultan laid bare Al-Rahim's schemes, from their attempts to sabotage the Al Nahyan family to fabricating evidence surrounding Khalid's death. "My family has endured loss and pain for years," Sultan declared at the press conference. "But today the truth will prevail. I will no longer remain silent. No one has the right to exploit my brother's death for their greed." The press conference sent shockwaves through the business world. Al-Rahim was immediately placed under investigation, and their investors began pulling out en masse. Sultan not only protected his family's honor, but also freed himself from the burden of his past. When Sultan returned to the palace that evening, Hana was waiting for him. He pulled her into his arms for the first time without reservation. "Thank you, Hana," he said, his voice rough with emotion. "Without you, I wouldn't have had the courage to face this." Hana smiled, tears glistening in her eyes. "You didn't just face it, Sultan. You conquered it." In that moment, they both realized that their relationship had grown far beyond a contractual agreement. They had found something far more valuable: trust and love. Chapter 4. Love Beyond the Contract. That morning, the Dubai sun cast its first golden rays through the large windows of the palace's study. Sultan sat quietly in a leather armchair, staring at the marriage contract laid out on the desk before him. Every clause, every stipulation now seemed meaningless. What had started as a transaction had evolved into something far deeper. Each time he thought of Hana, his heart ached, not from obligation, but from love. That evening, Sultan invited Hana to dinner in the palace garden. The area was adorned with the soft glow of lanterns and the delicate fragrance of white jasmine blooms. Hana stepped out, wearing a simple yet elegant dress, her expression one of surprise at the beautiful setup. "Did you prepare all of this?" she asked, her eyes wide. "I did," Sultan replied, pulling out a chair for her. "I thought we needed an evening just for us, not for responsibilities or any clauses." Throughout the meal, Sultan spoke about the thoughts that had consumed him recently, the burdens he carried, the walls he had built, and the emotions he could no longer deny. Finally, he placed his hand on the table, looking directly into Hana's eyes. "Hana," Sultan began, his voice deep and filled with emotion, "I can't keep pretending that this relationship is just a contract. You've changed me, breaking down every barrier I've built. I love you, not because you're someone I needed, but because you're someone I can't live without." Hana sat frozen, the sincerity in Sultan's words piercing her soul. Before she could respond, Sultan pulled an envelope from his pocket and placed it on the table. "This is our contract," he said, taking out the papers inside. "It was what bound us before, but now I realize it holds no meaning anymore." Without hesitation, Sultan tore the contract into pieces, each fragment falling onto the table like the release of a heavy burden. "I don't need a contract to keep you by my side, Hana. What I need is you, as the woman I love." Then Sultan stood, knelt on one knee before her, and took her hand. "Hana Farouk, will you marry me again? Not out of duty, but out of love?" Hana looked at Sultan, her heart pounding so hard she could hear it. Every word he spoke, every action he took, resonated deeply within her. She thought back to when they first met, a cold, distant man who had always protected her in his quiet, unwavering way. The moments they shared, the times he put her happiness above all else, made her realize she had fallen for him without even knowing it. "Do you really think I could say no?" Hana laughed, tears streaming down her cheeks. She held his hand tightly, her eyes shining. "I've asked myself about my feelings so many times, but now I have no doubts. I love you, Sultan, not for your wealth or power, but for the person you truly are behind that mask." Sultan stood, pulling Hana into his arms, holding her as if afraid she might vanish. "You've given me something I thought I could never have. Love and hope," he said, his voice trembling with emotion. Hana smiled in his embrace. "Then let's start again, not as two strangers, bound by a contract, but as two people in love, ready to build a real life together." Sultan leaned down, kissing Hana tenderly. It wasn't a kiss of obligation or duty, it was a kiss of love, genuine, profound, and full of emotion. Under the gentle glow of the lanterns, they began a new journey together, free from conditions or barriers, bound only by a love that had overcome everything. Epilogue. Hana and Sultan's journey had faced countless obstacles, from coldness and past pain to family pressure and heavy responsibilities. Yet their love had broken down every wall, allowing their hearts to find one another freely. Are you still following their story? Let us know your thoughts in the comments. Your feedback is invaluable to us. Chapter 5. Family and Love. A year later, the radiant morning sunlight filled the small garden of Sultan and Hana's new villa. Pristine white jasmine bushes bloomed, exuding a gentle fragrance. Unlike their first grand and lavish wedding, this time Sultan and Hana celebrated their union with a simple, intimate ceremony, attended only by family and close friends. Hana emerged wearing a long, modest gown that gracefully embraced her figure, now carrying their second child. Her face glowed with happiness, a stark contrast to the apprehension she had felt on their first wedding day. Sultan waited under an arch adorned with white and gold roses, his eyes filled with deep affection. As Hana approached, he gently placed a hand on her growing belly, a gesture both tender and full of pride. The ceremony unfolded in a warm and loving atmosphere, with blessings from Hana's mother, Sultan's once skeptical mother Aisha, and Daniel, Hana's younger brother. Aisha's eyes reflected joy as she witnessed her son finally find true happiness. As they exchanged vows, Sultan gazed into Hana's eyes and said, "I once believed happiness wasn't meant for me, but you've changed everything. You've given me love and helped me rediscover myself. I promise to always love and protect you and our growing family. Forever." Hannah smiled, tears glistening on her cheeks. "I once thought I entered this marriage out of obligation, but now I know it was destiny. I love you, Sultan, and I promise to build a life of love and gratitude with you." When they kissed amidst the cheers and blessings of those around them, laughter and the melody of traditional musicians filled the air. It was a new beginning, free from contracts and distance, built solely on love. Months after the wedding, Sultan and Hannah launched the Khalid Al Nahyan Foundation, dedicated to aiding orphans and struggling families across the Middle East. Sultan allocated all profits from old family projects and a portion of his company's revenue to establish this foundation as a tribute to the brother he cherished. Hannah became Sultan's partner in every way, supporting him not just organizationally, but also by personally visiting remote villages and helping families in need. During a visit to an orphanage, Hannah said to Sultan, "Khalid would be so proud of what you've done. You've turned pain into something profoundly meaningful." Sultan clasped her hand, smiling softly. "It's not just me. You inspired me to do this. You've always reminded me that from the greatest loss, we can find the greatest purpose." Together, they made a real impact, transforming Khalid's legacy into a beacon of hope for thousands who needed it. One serene afternoon in their villa garden, Sultan and Hannah played with their 3-year-old daughter, Amal, a lively little girl with big, sparkling eyes and a radiant smile, while their infant son slept peacefully in a nearby cradle. Sultan lifted Amal into the air, spinning her around and making her laugh gleefully. Hannah sat nearby on a chair, gently rocking the cradle, her gaze brimming with love as she watched her husband and daughter. She realized that all the struggles and pain they had endured had led to this moment, a complete, joyous family. "What are you thinking about?" Sultan asked, setting Amal down and sitting beside Hannah. She smiled, resting her head on his shoulder. "I'm thinking about our journey, from a cold, contractual start to true love. Who would have thought we'd end up here?" Sultan held her hand, gently kissing it. "I can't imagine my life without you, Hannah. You've changed everything, not just for me, but for our family." She chuckled, glancing at their children, then back at him. "And you've taught me that love doesn't always start sweetly. Sometimes it has to overcome the greatest trials to become unbreakable." As the sun set, casting a golden glow over their garden, they looked toward the future together, a family filled with love, gratitude, and hope. They knew that true love not only healed wounds, but also had the strength to overcome every barrier, turning the impossible into reality. The story ends with the joyous image of Sultan and Hannah's family, carrying a message that true love is not just an emotion, but also a commitment and courage to face challenges together. Thank you for staying with us until the end. Let us know your thoughts on this story in the comments below. What type of stories would you like to hear next? Don't forget to like, share this story, and subscribe to our channel for more.